All right, it's 6:33 on 10/18/21. We're here for the regular meeting of the Albans Town Selectboard. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jen, you probably need to just mute because you're delayed by a second or half a second.
Okay.
At least for that part, it's very confusing.
Okay, so we're on to an agenda amendment. We need to add project/event forms under the manager's report.
Please.
I'll make a motion to move, add project event forms under the manager report.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Okay. Any other additions or subtractions?
I do not have any others.
Perfect. Okay, we're on to agenda item number 2 with Jonathan and the general fund warrant.
I have the general fund warrants dated 10/14/2021 in the amount of $76,244.27. One of the big items there is $19,000 to the St. Albans Rec Department for the quarterly rec payment, and AmCare ambulance for $12,000. Make a motion we approve this general fund warrant.
Second?
Tie goes to Aaron. So we'll make a note that that $19,200 whatever payment to City Rec is, it's a quarterly invoice, but it's the highest amount that we pay over the course of the year because soccer is probably the most popular sport that our kids participate in. So I myself had made the mistake of thinking that we paid an even amount quarterly, and the manager, corrected me, and now everybody else knows now too. So that's neat. And then the amount we pay to AmCare, we're gonna talk about that at the budget in a couple of weeks. Now that AmCare's been sold to a larger private company. And every year it seems we get one resident that comes out of the blue and asks us, why do we pay that money? What do we get for it? So we'll ask those questions. But for now, we're going to continue to pay it. And we'll have a discussion for FY 23.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, any other questions, comments? All in favor of the motion on the floor?
Aye.
Perfect. And Aaron has 2 payroll warrants.
Yep, I have the payroll warrant for October 8th, 2021 in the amount of $53,397.12. And Anna, correct me if I've got this wrong, but this includes the fire department? It's the slightly bigger one?
Yes.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And the one dated October 15th, 2021 is in the amount of $21,121.26. And I'll make a motion to approve both of these payroll warrants for the dates dated.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. I've got a slew of miscellaneous warrants. The first one is the dated October 18th, 2021. It's a Stonehouse warrant in the amount of $3,422.20. And it all looks related. I haven't seen the Prescott invoice in depth, but yeah, that looks like it's water line. So this is all related to the new electrical service and the water line from the new well that was recently drilled by Chevalier Well Drilling for the Stonehouse to provide potable water and a suitable electrical service. So Stonehouse warrant dated October 18th, 2021 in the amount of $3,422.20.
So moved.
Second it?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we have an impact fee warrant for an overhead door for the new salt shed. I don't know if anybody's driven by when it's closed. That thing is massive. It's way bigger than I thought it would be, even when we designed it. So it's dated October 18th, 2021. It's an impact fee warrant in the amount of $25,000 even. And we just got the great comprehensive financial report from Anna, and we saw how the impact fee checkbook split up into different cost centers. So to pay for this, $18,000 will come out of the road impact fee sub-account, and $7,000 will come out of the administrative impact fee sub-account.
Correct.
Okay. So, would anyone like to move this warrant's approval?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. We've got another one, and here's a big one. Infrastructure development warrant or the local option tax reserve account. It's in the amount of $498,586.44. About $6,100, give or take, is in Peterson Consulting, which is our project management lead team, and then Winooski LLC, which I think is just a builder's risk policy for the project that the
Yep.
town has to furnish. And the balance, $492,516.19, is a DEW construction invoice. You'll see that we have a cement floor in the parking lot, had a base course paved. We are doing the vault walls this week, is my understanding, and then we'll start to see some vertical construction in the coming weeks. It's going to be really exciting. That's when it'll really come to life. But the septic system looked like it was in to the point where it could be inspected the last time I was there. The wells drilled, moving along. So, infrastructure development warrant dated October 18th, 2021, in the amount of $498,586.44.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Industrial park warrant looks normal. There's no Wind River invoices, thank God. It's all Green Mountain Power. For the sewage pump, the road light sign light where you turn in, and then the road lights. Industrial park warrant dated October 18th, 2021, the amount of $705.19.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Jess. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, stormwater utility warrants, my last one. So we've got two invoices totaling $3,594. So stormwater utility warrant dated October 18th, 2021, $3,594.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll make sure we sign all these. I think there's 5 of them in there. I think we just went through. So we'll do that at the end of the meeting. And now we are on to agenda item number 3, minutes. So we've got the minutes of the October 4th meeting in front of us. Aaron was absent, so the 3 of us will have to vote to constitute a quorum. Does anybody have any questions, suggestions, or comments?
No, looks good to me.
Good job as always, Jen.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes
Thanks.
from October 4th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, perfect. And now we're on to agenda item 4, public comment. So by Zoom, if you'd like to make a public comment, please, if you know how, raise your hand. If not, if you can't raise your hand through Zoom, please turn on your camera and raise your hand. So Dr. Williamson has raised her hand, so we're going to call on Dr. Williamson first. Feel free to unmute and I think what are we, 3 minutes? Okay,
So.
the floor is yours, Doctor.
Okay, I only need like 30 seconds. I just want to thank you. I'm really excited that, I brought it to you guys at the last meeting, and then it was on the agenda this meeting. And I've been attending a lot of meetings in the city and with the board, school board, and nothing ever moves this quickly. So I was super excited to see it come up so fast. So I'm just really grateful to see it on the agenda for tonight for the Belongingness, Inclusion, and Equity Committee. And I really feel like this is something that the town should really get ahead of. And get working on, because as our town grows, it's going to become more diverse. And with the things that happened at the schools a couple weeks ago, the one was in the newspaper with the BFA student, but we also got a letter home for the SATEC student. So it's happening in the younger schools. So getting ahead of it and really working on equity and showing the community that it is important to us, I think is very valuable. And so I'm very excited to see the discussion of this committee moving forward so quickly. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Would anybody else like to make a public comment? Okay. So,
Oh,
Jeffrey-
somebody is, yeah.
Jeffrey Nelson.
You
If
can
I read that right.
thank
I've
you.
got bad eyesight.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Most of you don't know me, but I'd just like to say that I appreciate this step that on behalf of all of St. Albans that you guys are taking. And I think that there's three sort of important frames to consider about the health of our community and our town. And that's that it's important to, in these issues, to for it to be important to react, to act, and to be proactive. So we need to be considering these, the issues that are before this new committee, the issues in the past, how that affects the present, and looking forward to the future. And I wish you success and luck. And I think I think you can take a lot of pride in St. Albans for the reasons and for the efforts, the good faith efforts that are made for the issues that are going to be before the committee. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jeffrey. So we have another hand raised under Nakuma. If you could unmute and say your first and last name, and I think we need your town or residence too.
Hi, I'm sorry, my camera is not working. My name is Nakuma Falcheski, and we live in the town, St. Albans Town. We recently moved here, and we before the pandemic happened. It was when we moved here, and it was interesting to move to such a small area for us. And I think the belonging, inclusion, and equity would be a great committee to draw more diverse people to this town. And so I think this program, this to me would be a great way to bring more tourism and money into the town. And I know that we are an interracial couple, and I think it'd be helpful to have this before my children start going to the larger schools.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Does anyone else have a public comment they'd like to make before the board? Okay. Seeing no other new hands raised, we'll move on to agenda item number 5. We're gonna discuss the committee that everyone made a public comment on under the chair's report after agenda items number 5 and 6. So stick around.
All right, so the first item I have under the agenda for town manager is the request that Corey primarily has been working on. Corey's out this week. St. Albans Bay wastewater request for qualification, so an RFQ is a little bit out of the norm of what we normally do, although we did issue RFQs for the garage project quite a bit, and we're asking at this point for the select board to authorize us to go out for an RFQ to basically to get access to this state program that primarily sells itself initially as a loan, but many are forgiven, not all, and it's not a guarantee, but we're trying to get this money so that we can study the feasibility of putting a wastewater system in the village area. So that kind of hits a lot of places for us, as we all know, but for those listening who might not know, we have a village designation down here, and we've struggled with water quality issues, and this is one of the best ways to assist that going forward. So if we can get this loan or grant, and then the ARPA money or the American Reinvestment, I can't remember what the acronym means ever. I keep confusing it with the stuff from Obama. But anyway, the federal money that's coming our way to use this towards the wastewater projects. It's a long weekend.
You're entitled.
I know, right? Football games are tough. Anyway, this is a serious project. It is important to, I think, the board and a lot of citizens in this area. So it's just a little out of ordinary to do the RFQ first, but they advised us that this is the best way to do that because some of this federal money comes with federal strings and federal grant guidelines. So
We need a board motion to authorize the town manager's office with the assistance of the director of operations,
Mhm.
put out an RFQ for the St. Albans Bay wastewater project.
Correct. Yep. And I mean, this isn't the final part, right, if we
No,
get
it's
it
just the
and-
first step.
Correct. This is the very first step.
I'll make a motion to support the St. Albans Bay wastewater request for qualifications.
Second?
You know, we'll say that Corey sold this. If he were here, he'd make this same pitch. So I'm going to try to mimic him. He said that going this way would allow us to keep more ARPA dollars in the bank and would allow us to maybe even leverage them further by accessing more state and federal dollars as they come over the next few months, or even the next year or more.
Correct.
He's been working pretty closely with Emily, the stormwater coordinator, on what water quality dollars may be available for this project. They are watching what buckets of money are available and how much is in each bucket and when it needs to be applied for, and this was their recommendation. So with that said, if anyone has any other comment? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Awesome. That's really awesome. So, thanks.
Thank
Karen.
you so much. Also, it's kind of important that we keep on track with this. The ARPA money technically is supposed to be spent by 2024, so these kind of projects take a lot of time in the development stage.
Right.
We want to get in line as soon as possible. So the next item is town hall update. You alluded to much of it earlier, but just for those citizens that don't drive by that site all the time, we are doing a lot of the site work and getting as much done as possible before winter sets in. We never know when that's going to, but it usually brings more costs when that happens. As I indicated in my notes, and you probably have figured out, that we still have some cash to pay for the town hall construction, but Anna and I are going to be discussing the loan request at our second meeting in November, when Hunter has a chance to update the budget and review with you where we are exactly, and then Anna will have a current budget on basically our infrastructure development savings account, and in November we should be getting another payment as well. So we're just trying to hold off as long as possible. Interest on that amount of money is significant.
Mhm.
Although the interest rates are really good right now, of course.
Right.
So the third item, Parks Ordinance. We talked about this for a few different meetings. Really the only change we made was on the section specifically calling out smoking on town property. And it was somewhat ambiguous. I think someone thought it sounded better, but none of us could recall why we put the other language in there, so we removed that language and just left the meat on it. So it was section, I can read it too for those that are following. Got the wrong one, but it was section 6 point. No, that's not it. Six point 3.19 in the ordinance for parks, which now says smoking, including vaping, is prohibited at all municipal properties. The possession of lighted tobacco products or tobacco substitutes in any form is prohibited. And that section is under a subsection entitled Activities Prohibited. So I believe with those two things, it's pretty clear what our intent is for the Bay Park right now.
Or should it be possession or usage? Like, if you have it on your person but aren't using it.
Wonder if the lighted, I mean, you may not be.
Oh.
Yeah.
It says the
Yeah.
possession of lighted. To
Yeah.
me that sounds like should say lit, but somebody else wrote it like that. But
That's fine. You're right, Aaron. I saw that one word and didn't read into the context of it.
yeah, we're not asking people to patrol and search at the entrances your bags, but we prefer.
Right. Can you imagine? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you go to big public places, they still do that, and they can do that, but we're not going to do that.
At our first budget hearing, I'm going to propose adding $40,000 to the law enforcement line to pay for a citizen patrol of anyone in the park to ask if they have tobacco on their person, so we can fine them $20.
So you're not serious about that?
I don't know yet. I don't know. We'll
Okay.
see if it grows on.
I don't wanna start with.
I did have a question about, the language there around, it says lighted tobacco products. I'm guessing or tobacco substitutes, it means lighted tobacco substitutes, or any, like, are we talking about like snuff or chew or, any of the like non-lit tobacco I mean, it's.
I don't think that was the intent.
Okay.
I think the
Yeah.
intent was vaping products,
Right.
but
if you're,
at this point, we're asking for largely voluntary compliance, so I
Right.
hope we
Right.
get it. If
Yeah.
that becomes a problem, we could add it.
No, I was just thinking just for clarity, if someone had
Mhm.
to, enforce it, like, they're not hunting down folks that have,
tobacco.
other things that
Yeah,
are
no.
not lit or vaping or,
I believe that they will, it's a good point, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure when you start getting into the variants of vaping, I don't
Mhm.
know them all by,
Yeah, me either.
so I don't know. I think that's,
Mhm.
that generic stuff came from Amy Brewer and
Okay.
through her help with the anti-tobacco work in the area, so I
I will
took her
say
word
you-
for it.
You've captured exactly why I really wanted to split the ordinance and create a policy. I mean,
Correct.
the policy allows us to adjust things pretty fluidly,
It does.
and I'm gonna read off the headings to everything in the parks policy, just for those in the public. So, the town parks policy will allow us to more fluidly control opening and closing times, park uses, reservations, application requirements for park rentals, how we confirm reservations, the fees we charge, and that's really the meat of it. But that's the big thing is, like 4 or 5 years ago when we started forming this team, the park, Alan had just come on board. John was a couple years out. I think Carrie and I were here alone with Alan, and the parks were closed from Labor Day to Memorial Day. There was no use, and in the summer there weren't that many people down here. And we've invested more, and we'll talk about that at our next budget meeting. We've invested more every year into our parks. We've done a lot of renovations, and we continue to do more renovations and add new events to our schedule. And in order to create a framework that allows us to be as successful as possible, we need to be able to fluidly change certain things as we find out what works and doesn't work. And when you have, the things we just mentioned that are in this new policy tied into an ordinance, it requires public hearings, and then it has 60-day appeal periods, and it's a lot tougher, and it kind of boxes you in on what you can and can't do. So as we've tried to keep the parks open longer and added more money to staff that, we haven't always been, necessarily in compliance with our own ordinance. So this is a opportunity to allow us to be, compliant with ourselves and to make changes that we need to make when we need to make them. So kudos to everyone that had a hand in, forming the policy and, taking these few provisions out of the ordinance. I think you captured the spirit of what we're trying to do. With that said, does anybody have any other language questions or any points to make, or would anyone even like to make a motion to first approve the new ordinance and then separately the policy?
I'll make a motion to approve the parks ordinance. We have to do them one at a time.
I think we should.
Yeah, you do,
Okay.
One's
actually.
an ordinance, the other being a policy.
Second?
Okay, all in favor of adopting the parks ordinance?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect.
I'll make a motion, we approve the parks policy.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've been working on that one off and on for, more like off and off, but off and on for a period of like 3 years now. So to see this finally realized is a job well done. So that's pretty awesome. But, okay, Gary, back to you.
Still in awe that it actually got approved. All right, so the fourth item is just that you were copied on Act 250 permit for Malone Properties. It's Franklin Park West, Franklin Park, the village at Franklin Park West, that area. No big things, no questions on that. The item we added at the beginning of the meeting was the project and event policy and forms. So we have 3 separate forms. These questions seem to be coming up, so it kind of seemed like there was enough of a need to actually have some approvals in place so that I can answer your questions pretty quickly. So there's project review forms and very separately event review approval forms, and then grant approval forms. So obviously they're gonna need to be tweaked probably almost every year, but the point is, once they get approved, you know, at least on our end, we'll assume we've got the go-ahead, and it's not gonna be questioned later, but it might take longer to get to this point, but we'll know that everyone's informed when we're there, and if we forget, it'll be there to remind us all, which I'm including myself in that one. So things like expense budgets, it's asking for just a description, an estimated amount, budget code, estimated what fiscal year is gonna happen, and is it an annual or one-time expense. And for things like events, kind of the same thing, we're just asking for like a balance sheet, basically. What are the revenues you're bringing in, how much will it cost, what are your one-time expenses and ongoing expenses. I think it'll help us just track things more, and I think make a case for bigger and maybe a little bit more involved projects as we go.
Definitely. I like that you added under the procedure regarding the grant request form, that if there's a local match required of the grant more than $5,000, it requires select board approval also. It's a nice check and balance between the executive and legislative body.
That's a really great way to put it.
It is too.
It's good. No, I mean, and honestly, putting it in writing, because it could, sometimes things do take a while. We could apply for a grant for 2 to 5 years. But once it finally gets approved and passed, if somebody asks later how we paid for it, it might not be immediately obvious, so. I mean, these are just our first round. They could be changed. They can be improved, but.
I'm sure as you
Seems
use
like
them.
a great tool, just to know what's happening all the time and where the funds are coming from, and I mean, even for project tracking, just to make sure you're getting all the steps done.
Definitely.
Is this something that can be worked into like the new something like
Polymorphic.
polymorphic? Yeah, is that something that can be made digital at some point, or?
I'm sure when we get the developers back, they could, I know they said that actually Molly Mashter has been wicked good about using their system to improve her own workflow. And
Zoning has as well, and Megan
Yeah.
can make up fillable forms pretty well. She's got a lot of GIS experience along with Emily, so I'm sure we can do that. Maybe
Eventually.
this summer, maybe not.
Yeah.
could turn into a folder in the polymorphic system that you click on, and these
Yeah.
forms are in there, and you can literally click off the steps as you go.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, they can design and program anything. I mean, you could end up with these forms built into the back end so that as you cross things off, it auto-fills your form, and then at the end you get, you know, a totally filled out PDF that you just have to submit to the appropriate person. And the system already allows you to submit tasks to different people within the organization.
Yeah, I wish I had that now.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I'm still on yellow pads. I'm trying to figure out a CRM that won't cost me an arm and a leg. Yeah, it's definitely inspirational what the town staff is doing with polymorphic and how it'll change how municipalities interact with, you know, constituents and residents. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, and whether it's on paper or polymorphic, I think the forms are great, a
Yeah.
good place to, you know, like you said,
Information.
it'll be iterative, you'll learn what's missing, and that's a great starting place.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it helps us stay transparent with what we're up to.
Yep.
So that's awesome. If anybody from the public came in and asked, you know, that event, that lose money, you slide that right in front of them. It's like, this is the event form, this is the budget, and then you can compare it to, it'll give you something you can use to compare to actuals after the event. You know, if you projected we're gonna raise 5,000 and you raise 15, you know, that's awesome. That's pretty cool.
So one of the, I think it was the event form, it said were there any issues or problems. That's always helpful too,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
then next year when you do it again, sometimes you forget.
Yep.
You can look back and see how you can improve it every year.
Yeah, it's been helpful just in my work. We have event summaries for every time we have a public event, and now that we're revisiting some locations and some events, I've gone back and reread. Like, okay, how many people did we see?
Mhm.
It's been really helpful just to have that form to give me a sense of, so I don't make the same mistakes again. So,
Yep. I don't know that you necessarily have to approve them, just looking for your feedback. I mean, they're internal forms. You might want to,
No, I think they're fine if that's what, I think you as the manager have the authority to set those as, unless you'd like them approved as some form.
no,
of
I think they're
policy.
fine like that. I just wanted, I guess, just consensus then, that you're fine with this, and if there's anything significant you think needs to be changed, I need to know. Otherwise, we probably won't touch it, maybe once in every spring kind of thing.
Yeah, and you know, as things come up, you know, opportunities arise, different grants can come out, you know, it's a good, you know, it'll be something that we've all seen before, you know, by the second time we use it, so it'll be very familiar to us. And it'll be nice.
All right, we'll leave that one, that's good then. I'll probably put it into place soon, but not right now, maybe November 1st or something. The last item, we did meet last month, the Honor Wall Committee met on Wednesday. We're still meeting once a month. There are, I think, 5 or 6 members. The request at last Wednesday's meeting was that we just put it out there to the public that we're seeking nominations to put of names, individuals that they believe are worthy to put on our honor wall. The honor wall right now is in the lobby on the Church Street side of the town hall. In the new building, it will be in the lobby. It's a beautiful, slightly conservative, but yet very beautiful hall, and it'll have an obvious honor wall section, a section for zoning, of course, and then the public to access the town clerk's office. So it'll get a lot of traffic. It'll be actually pretty nice, but we're looking for names because the committee is meeting this fall, ending in January, and making a recommendation to the select board at that time to see if they'd like to nominate someone else to that honor wall. Right now we have 4 approved names. We have Frank Montaigne, all those pictures not up there, Eleanor Goodrich, a former town clerk, Steve Weschler, who was on our DRB and listing and planning. He did a lot of work for the town, and Bob Johnson, who did almost all those other things as well. So we're looking for names. We have 1 name so far. It's a good name, but we're just trying to make people aware that every year in the fall that we're going to be doing this, and if they thought someone else might be worth nominating, they're encouraged to do so. We are going to put on our website the criteria the select board created last year, which I cannot remember all of right now, so I'm not going to remember a few of them, but so it's just service to the town or this area.
Nice.
We're getting to
It's currently posted under the news events, but you have to click on news event because it's down the list a little bit now.
Okay, thank you. I knew it had been put on, but we're gonna put stuff on, a few things on social media, just trying to get a little energy out there, maybe with a few pictures.
Awesome.
So that was my little commercial, and that's all I have for new items under town manager.
Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 6 is our schedule. So we have budget meetings Monday, October 25th and Monday, November 8th, both at 5:30. And then we have regular select board meetings Monday, November 1st and Monday, November 15th. So we'll see each other the next 4 Mondays consecutively.
I won't be there next Monday.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
standing work meeting the 4th Monday of every month.
Got it. Okay. I think we're in a better place than we were the last meeting as far as preparedness to tackle the budget Monday night. So we'll be sure to send you the minutes. I don't know what else to say
Yeah,
beyond
that's
that.
fine.
Thanks for the heads up, though.
I trust you guys.
Thank you. Okay, so anything to add under schedule?
No, I don't think so right now.
our local health department director, you know, I don't know who that is, but we had a conversation earlier today about how COVID is running right through the community and how it's impacting our community hospital. And as we watch, you know, case numbers and we move into the winter with windows closed, and you know, we may need to move into a Zoom only status. But yeah, I'm gonna consult Aaron on that on a regular basis, and we'll make a decision that makes sense based on science and, you know, protecting us all. So.
We may have to do that, you know, for employees at town hall if it comes to that, so I would encourage anyone before they come here to call or check our website, because, you know, if we have to, I don't anticipate it immediately, but it could happen that we need to go remote for a little bit.
And there's I don't know, is there a scientific, like a proven impact, like a seasonality of COVID transmission?
That's hard, I mean, hard to say, there's not just enough science yet, but I mean, they have seen that as climates have gotten colder, you know, the certain parts of the country where it's starting to get colder, their numbers are starting to go up a little bit, so
Right.
that could be just the way Delta came into that community, it could be a variety of things, but yeah, but certainly masks on when you're inside is recommended right now, so.
And then, you know, booster shots are available to, I think it's 65 and older if you're 6 months removed from your first shot.
Yep, there's actually several different criteria that folks can fall under, and
Nice.
you know, so lots of information out there on the state's website, so.
Check that out. What is it? VDH.gov or something?
Healthvermont.gov.
Healthvermont.gov. I can't believe I forgot. That was in my on my Facebook bio for like 6 months. I can't believe I forgot that URL. But healthvermont.gov. Okay, so you know, that could happen at any given moment, and we'll be sure anybody gives you. We all get a heads up. So now we're on to my report. I'm you know, honored to be able to share that Sophie Parent was born this morning at 9:05, weighing 7 pounds 8 ounces, 19 inches long, and she's got the most beautiful eyes. And I can't wait for Corey to be here to share pictures with you all. But congratulations to Corey and Samantha Parent and their family. It's really awesome. And to big brother Liam, who is as of like an hour ago was skating. You know, he's learning to skate up at the complex. So congratulations to the Parent family on behalf of the town. It's pretty cool stuff. And then you know, so let's talk about the Belongingness, Equity, and Inclusion Committee proposal that was brought to us at our last meeting. Had a couple weeks now to digest, you know, what I think is reasonable and possible, and I think we should entertain the idea of moving the Police Advisory Committee from 2 surveys a year to 1, and moving that committee to quarterly and instead of monthly. And I think that would allow us to have enough staff resources available to create this new committee, and at first have it meet on a quarterly basis, maybe staggered from the Police Advisory Committee, and see how you know, resident volunteers come forward and how quickly we can appoint the committee, but maybe have a target date that we have a policy for the committee in place, and are ready to make some appointments, I think in January, so it's not rushed. And I'll preface that by saying I understand that, you know, the city created a police advisory committee and an equity committee, and it's my understanding that they meet monthly. Our staffing resources are very different from the city. They have, you know, I think they're 96 FTEs and we're at 19 or 20. So it is very much, if it's going to be a town function, it's, you know, what resources are available from us from a staff level, and then if we take these committees as seriously as they deserve to be taken, how much time during regular business hours would it take for that staff person to adequately staff that committee? Because I know Corey has spent a solid amount of time preparing for, attending, and then debriefing from the police advisory committees. And, you know, I think if we're gonna do it, it makes sense to, you know, have two and then maybe stagger them so that they don't meet at the beginning of, you know, one committee meets at the beginning of the quarter and then one maybe the second month. You know, and I'll also, you know, preface this proposal by saying, you know, we all try to do everything we can. We try to recognize certain holidays or months as we can. We try to review different events that happen through an equity lens. Like a few months ago, we had a great event in the Great Race, and the idea came to the board that maybe the town needed to purchase some equipment for lower income residents or visitors to be able to use to participate in the race, because it's a very expensive race to participate in, not from a registration perspective, but from an equipment perspective, between a canoe or a kayak and a road bike. You know, and there are just things that we all, as, you know, to be totally blunt, straight white people don't understand. And there's a lot of perspectives that, you know, we don't have that, you know, deserve to be represented at the town level, in my mind. So that's my proposal and my 2 cents. I'll open the floor to anyone who would also like to make a comment or suggestion.
I have a question first. Does the police committee meet monthly right now, you said?
Right now, yeah.
So could they alternate months? Could they each meet 6 times a year?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would ask Carrie to research that with, you know, whoever, if it's Corey or someone else, but whoever you plan to assign to staff it, because, you know, I know the police advisory committee, you're not just with Corey, you have access to Captain Grismore and Sheriff Langevin, and they provide support too. So if it's just on Corey or, you know, maybe one other, or just a totally different staff member to staff the police advisory committee, you know, with that group from the sheriff's office, and then the equity committee totally by themselves, if that's an increased, you know, I thought about that too, but I thought maybe you might need a little bit more time. And then it's always up to, you know, the staff member and the chair of either committee to decide if they need to meet more often, you know, for a specific project or proposal that they're working on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to get the committee going, at least. I mean, it's something that's been brought up in meetings before, and I think it's very important to be capturing all the voices in the town and making everyone feel welcome. And even though we do our best, we're not seeing everything that someone else who's focused on this might see, that we could do a little bit better. So I'm fully in support of starting the committee, even if it's quarterly, you know, just to get it going.
I would say my only other, you know, concern is when we revamped and restarted the police advisory committee, it was directly in the wake of the George Floyd murder, and we can say it was a convicted murder now, thank God. And I think the intent there was to provide a vehicle for marginalized voices in the community to be able to be here at the town level and, you know, speak directly to folks providing law enforcement services. And I don't know if it made it into the last version of the policy that we approved, but there was an iteration of it that gave priority to appointing, you know, BIPOC or other marginalized voices above, you know, white people. And I think we're all going to have to work very hard to make sure that we don't end up with another committee of folks like us, I would say. I mean, if the intent there is to provide a, you know, maybe we weren't successful in finding, you know, the voices that we were, you know, looking for the police advisory committee, because there was that law enforcement aspect of it, that maybe, you know, made some folks not want to be on that committee, being their first committee with the town, and maybe they'll come forward for this, knowing that it's a more open committee that has a broader a broader, and we haven't really even determined what its mission will be yet, because I think it's gotta be a very succinct mission specific to the town, whether it's review of certain proposals, or, looking at things that we already have in place and making suggestions, or attending events, and, maybe, we've gotta really work on how we think the committee can be effective, and I think we're gonna have to hear from people in the community as we develop another, we'll need that founding document that we had for the police advisory committee that, gave it its lane, stay in the lane. I think that's what's made the police advisory committee fairly effective. It knows what its mission is, so if we can do that in this case too, even if it takes a couple months, we can spend that time recruiting, while we develop the policy, and, I know Corey's out for the next couple weeks, and I think if, somebody, not to keep naming Corey, but I think if somebody were to write that policy at a staff level, it would probably start with him.
There's other municipalities that are currently working on that, and VLCT has been assisting them, so I don't necessarily think we have to recreate the entire wheel, right? We can
Right.
customize it, but I know the town of Middlebury has been working with some subcommittees to implement, some of these things. So why don't we start by getting research there?
Yeah.
It'd be helpful, maybe if we had a select board member liaison as well, somebody who could bring back, the work of that committee to the board.
And I mean, I think we could benefit a lot from having folks, to be honest, one-on-one, I've instructed Corey as a staff person for the planning commission to make sure that as our unified development bylaws are reviewed and revised, that a great attention is paid to the equity of our land use law, and making sure that we aren't not being as inclusionary as we need to be. I don't know how to phrase it any differently, but we don't want to make our law contribute to a hardship for anyone. So I think the planning commission's working to that effect. I've got a lot of trust, and I know Al Vogel's there, and he's aware of that sincere desire to make these reviews through that lens. So if we can put it together a document that's got a succinct list of things that the committee can do and work on, I think the hardest part isn't going to be forming the committee and giving it its guiding document. It'll be finding the voices we will really need to make it effective. And then by moving police advisory to a quarterly committee and cutting them down to one survey a year to free up staff time to be able to create the equity committee, we'll have to take a greater degree of scrutiny at the select board level to how our policing services are provided. We'll have to, I'm not saying we need to review statistics on a monthly basis, but the town manager's already doing that with the sheriff's office, and we'll have to be sure as select board members that we're monitoring that more closely. With that said, are we all in a place where we could agree to that type of a proposal of having 2 quarterly meetings and trying to figure it out from there?
I'd be interested if Corey and Carrie feel like every other month would be doable, just to make that number from 4 a year to 6 a year for each committee. But I understand not being able to meet monthly.
Yeah, I think I can definitely hear both points, and I think that where the administration falls as far as what makes the most sense from a staffing perspective. We don't want to overtax our team here, and at the same time, I also know that sometimes if you're asking volunteers to commit their time for meeting quarterly, they may not get the momentum, both from the police advisory perspective or from the Belongingness committee, to feel like they're making an impact. By the time you get caught up on what happened last time and get into something, you have to then wait a couple months to have that conversation again. So I think if that would be the other benefit of being able to meet more frequently, is being able to hopefully get ahead of steam under some work and be able to make some great proposals to us, from their work suggestions and such.
Yeah, I'm also wondering the level of staffing needed at every meeting. I know the city hired a friend of mine to take the minutes at all their meetings. So could someone go as a minute taker and they don't get paid as much? I mean, it would be something extra to add in the budget, but you have like a designated minute taker at the meetings, and then the staff reviews the minutes and attends every other meeting. I don't know if that's something that's even possible, but.
I mean, I feel like you need to have somebody facilitate that meeting, or nothing's gonna get done, but it's very easy for any of us to get in a room with people that are somewhat like-minded, or you have something in common, to get off track very easily. So I don't even know what the mission statement is for this committee. I would think you'd need somebody to make sure that they're there at all the meetings to provide the consistency and leadership, even if it's loose, right? So they could maybe elect themselves a chair ultimately. I think that's doable, but it does take a decent amount of staff time to prepare for a meeting, and right now in the next like 4 to 6 months, it's challenging for us in every department. I mean, just at our staff meeting last week, we had the chat that, you know, just like when you do when you move personally, we're moving. Town hall is moving. We need to clean. We need to go through the basement and go through our closets and figure out our retention schedules, and so any free time we had from regular work is gonna be during the daytime anyways. We take enough doing that because we don't wanna move stuff we don't need, frankly. So it might be doable after that's all settled. Literally the dust is settled and we're all moved in, and like, what can we do moving forward? But I just don't wanna, I feel like I'm falling behind now, because even though we're building town hall, there's still minimum 2 to 4 hours of work every week on that. Even though, yes, we do have other people doing it, we're checking their work. Or even Alan's involved almost every day, so.
I mean, this will be not counting the honor roll committee, but it'll be the third new committee in, I think, 3 or 4 years' time. 3 years, 3.5.
Yeah.
Between parks and police, and I mean, police was there, but it fell apart because there wasn't a staff member really leading the charge on it, I would say. And then you see, I mean, I'm a 4.5 year select board member now, my 3rd year as chair, and Carrie just corrected me on the general fund warrant before this meeting started. You know, you need that level of institutional knowledge even for the folks that should be really in the know on the town's business and what we're capable of.
There's just a lot of information flowing.
Yeah, no, it all makes sense. I guess I'm with Erin in that I don't wanna see any of these committees lose the momentum that they've got going.
Yeah.
It might have to be 6 months. I'll try to get some of that information. I know that they've been actively working on this. It's not something that happens very quickly, but you do have to methodically keep it going every other month, perhaps. I'm not sure who we assign to that task right now.
There could be a totally different model in front of us that we haven't even thought to discuss. There could be something to be said of, you know, private residents grouping together and creating a group. You know, we've seen one in St. Albans City that's proven to be effective in moving policy down the line in City Hall. If we really feel like, you know, the town can only provide a quarterly meeting, but, you know, folks want to meet on a more regular basis to lay out priorities as private citizens and to bring those to the town separately. Everybody's got that right. You know, we can. So there's that opportunity too, if a group of people wants to form itself and really start, you know, making a review of, you know, the town.
Or could they meet on their own once a month and meet with the town quarterly?
If it's a function of the town, I would say that they would. If it's a specific function of the town, like the police advisory committee is, and it's got a specific lane that it's in related to the town, I would think that would be separate from a community-led organization or group. But that doesn't mean that one couldn't work hand in hand with the other, or even be somewhat partially the same people. You know, but that said, you know, it can't be expected that a private group can form itself and then bend the new town committee, you know, to its vision and a whim. You know, it's interesting. I think there'll be growing pains as we go forward. You know, hopefully, you know, in a perfect world, we get the right voices in the right places, and you know, we might have to have some uncomfortable conversations related to their, you know, proposals, and you know, that would be, you know, I think that's where we want to head. But
I wonder too, I mean, if it ends up being, even for a short period of time, that the committee is meeting quarterly, you know, it could be something too where, you know, we might be able to help by saying, like, we need some assistance with this, would this committee be willing to look at it? But shoot, I had another thought there where I was going down a path and then just went over here. But yeah, I think, you know, the benefit of having, and I don't think you were proposing to just have a private group versus a town group. I think it would be like an ands thing, to, you know, foster. You know, I think that it's really beneficial to have, you know, a town sanctioned group as well, just because the level of proactiveness that we can have as far as sharing, you know, talking about policies or procedure changes or ordinances that need just a looking at as well. And I think that in saying that, I don't think that we should we're not abdicating our responsibility to be mindful of all this as well. I think it's just having another group of folks that can help us be thoughtful as we're, you know, moving forward as a town, and just making sure that we're a town that everyone who's here feels like they and are here. So.
I agree. I mean, we can't, like you said, you can't forget the duty that we owe to, you know, residents that are here as elected officials. Just because we create the committee doesn't mean that, you know, Corey and I and the rest of us won't be able to continue to try to make, you know, strides in certain directions. And I think if anything, it'll make us be more mindful, and it'll help us be better elected officials in the long run, especially with the suggestions. But you'll see that, you know, this board and, you know, myself as a chair, we're taking a pretty hard line on what we want the town to be and where we want to go. You may have seen a letter that Tim, the mayor, and I co-authored regarding the incident that another resident mentioned in her public comment about a really unfortunate incident that happened at BFA. You know, that was the first time I think the town and city have come together to say anything proactive in any arena regarding anything related to racism. I mean, racism has been in our community since its inception, really, if you think about it. And to be at the point where, you know, our board chair and the city's mayor can, you know, come together hand in hand and, you know, condemn and apologize. I think that was the most important part of that letter when we wrote it, was the fact that there was an apology for the behavior and a commitment to do better, you know, as community leaders and parents. That said, there's more to be done, and there are things that we're just not seeing because we don't have the perspectives needed. I mean, my wife very well may want to be a member of the committee. She's a first generation resident of America. She moved here at a young age and only spoke French, and you know, now she's a dual citizen. That's a perspective that not a lot of people have. She's lived in she lived in Ireland for a couple of years while she was in elementary school, and you know, so that's, you know, that's a perspective in the community that, you know, we don't always see. So there's all kinds of different voices and opportunities that we need the voices to realize. So that said, you know, that's just my rough proposal, quarterly and quarterly. I think the staff will probably confirm that that's what's possible right now. And in the future, you know, I mean, you look at Neighbors for a Safer St. Albans, you can say that they're responsible for this discussion right now, because I think Dr. Williamson came here on their behalf to make that suggestion. I can remember watching the city council meeting, I think it was in June, where multiple members of the Neighbors organization attended the city council meeting in person, and I think that's where the city's, what's the acronym, DEIA? I can't remember, the committee.
Diversity,
Equity.
DEI?
DEI.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay, yeah, that, I'm trying to be better, but, I think that's the first meeting where it was discussed, and I think the catalyst for that discussion was the fact that the town had recognized Pride Month in Juneteenth. And I can remember the city manager offering to throw a significant amount of money at, you know, banners and an advertising campaign and even an event, and the neighbors group, you know, those residents of the city saying, the town didn't spend any money, they're being mindful, you know, be more like the town. And that was a big, big moment for us, and, you know, I think we need to keep marching down the line, and we need these new voices to, they're not new voices, actually, they're voices that have been here and just haven't had a voice in how we operate, and, you know, and hopefully, you know, the Equity and Police Advisory Committees become vehicles for Planning Commission, Development Review Board, Parks Committee, and Select Board members of the future, because we're not all gonna be here forever. There might not be a single one of us left here in 5 years. And there isn't a current member of the Select Board that was here 6 years ago. So as that changeover happens, you need to have a pipeline that creates new candidates, informed candidates. So Aaron and I came from the Planning Commission, Jonathan came from the DRB, and Jessica was avidly involved through Rise Vermont and then the Parks Committee. So, I mean, that's what you need. You want people in these seats that have experience working within the town. So these two committees are just another opportunity to, you know, not only realize some actual opportunities, but to also create the leaders of tomorrow. You know, that's another big benefit. But
Well, it's nice to bring it from a topic of discussion to being able to take some action. I mean, I know when we were talking about the police advisory, and, you know, it just felt like such an emotional topic, you know, a year and a half ago. And I remember sitting here and feeling like I'm a local leader, I need to be doing something, what can I do? And not knowing what to do. And to look back and say, okay, we've started this committee, and now we can take this action, and there's a way to take the energy of people who want to be involved in the town. I mean, so often we want people to show up and be involved, and here's a group just saying, like, we're ready, we want to jump in and help. So we need to accept that.
I hope it is a group, and I really hope that, you know, we have more names than we have committee spots, and it turns into a you know, a discussion of making sure that, you know, maybe even the committee's expanded. I hope that we have that problem. I can remember where we were, you know, not that long ago with the Police Advisory Committee, wondering, you know, how the heck are we gonna staff this? And then, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every single member is, you know, white. I mean, so it's, but again, I think, you know, maybe the fact that it's a law enforcement focused committee may have, you know, deterred some residents that would have otherwise volunteered for an equity committee. And you could see at some point that, you know, maybe these committees are combined someday, you know, and there's a quasi multifunction that allows it to meet more often, you know what I mean? And we don't know where we're headed. We just know that we need to, you know, seek out voices that aren't currently, you know, that have perspectives that aren't currently represented here, and, you know, if we're successful in doing that, we'll form a committee with a very succinct you know, policy, and if the committee deems that the policy needs to be amended after it started meeting, we'll entertain the amendments as suggestions. And, you know, it's really an advisory committee to us, and the administration is what it'll boil down to. And it very well could turn out that we look at different things and opportunities, and, you know, like we did with the Parks Ordinance and Policy with the Parks Committee, we could say, you know, we don't have the time or the wherewithal to focus on this, it's specific to your committee, please work on it and have a work product back to us in 6 months. You know, it's a lot of opportunity, but so I guess we've got to create some kind of an actionable timeline. And in order to really get that started, I'd love for Corey and Carrie as the number 1 and 2 of the organization to be able to have a discussion about what's possible related to staffing. And he is out through the end of next week. So let's look at November 15th to have this on the agenda again with an update from Carrie and Corey as to what's possible.
And raising her hand.
Okay, hi, doctor.
I just wanted to add in a few little things. One is that I'm the chair of the Police Advisory Committee, and we've been meeting since April, and I've been asking the sheriff for data on race, and we haven't been able to get him to give it to us. Well, wasn't it until July, but still, we've been asking like monthly, and we still can't get that data. So part of my interest in starting like a BEI committee is not only my frustration with the Police Advisory Committee and how little it can accomplish, but also because I feel like the town as a whole really needs some work, and we don't just need, letters after the fact when bad things happen. We need to be really proactive and get things done and tell the world, like, we're not gonna accept this kind of behavior. And I feel like 2 meetings a year is not anywhere near enough to get anything like that accomplished, because like I said, as the Police Advisory Committee, we've been meeting monthly, and we're like just barely getting some data back from like one thing that we've done. So I would really love to see way more meetings than just 2 a year for either committee. But also I wanted to point out that some of the names that I gave to Jessica and Carrie were people who were in Neighbors for a Safer St. Albans group, and they are a diverse crowd. They aren't just a bunch of white people. It's mostly women, BIPOC, LGBTQIA people represented. So the BEI committee could actually have a very diverse committee, because I was the one to like call those people and say, would you be interested in saying that you would be interested in this group? So it could be very diverse, whereas the Police Advisory Committee, I only found out about it sort of like through some side channel. I don't think anybody even knew that they were looking for applications. So there's only 2 women on the whole group. Yes, we're all white, but there's literally only 2 women, which I think is, something that definitely needs to change in the future as well. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that 2 meetings a year is nowhere near enough. And if you want, Neighbors for a Safer St. Albans to gather information and to come to every meeting and tell you what we think you should be doing, we will gladly do that. But the problem is that we want to make sure that when we come to you with a problem, that you actually do something about it. And with the committee, like, you're kind of required to listen to us, whereas if we're just some outside organization, you could very much just write us off and tell us that you're not going to listen to us. So that part makes me a little nervous there. So just some more things to consider. Thank you.
I'm not sure if Brendan wasn't heard well, but he did not say 2 meetings a year. He said 6 meetings a year or
Wow.
quarterly.
I think I said the Police Advisory 4, and then
Oh, I don't think that. There's a big
4
range
per year.
anyway.
4
Yeah.
per year per committee.
Right,
I thought would
right.
be a reasonable number to start with.
Well,
And it's, I guess it is going to be a tricky discussion about what this committee should be, focused on. I think if it's going to be a
Right.
town function, it's going to be focused on the town.
yeah.
A lot of the bad behavior we see in our communities in the schools, and we're not the Maple Run Board, so we may have issues with the way Maple Run conducts its business related to these incidents, but again, we're going to have to make sure that we stay in our lane as a select board when we task the committee with its workload.
Mhm.
So I think it's got to be pretty strictly related to the town if it's going to be a town committee. Our events, our policies, our ordinances, maybe access to certain things. I don't know what
Well, it'd be nice. I'd like to see some samples, because I think there's a way to write it where we have, what's important to the town, but also a way for them to bring, hey, you might have not even thought of this, but this is something the town should be considering. And I think, you know, the more organizations that are doing this in a community, the greater collective impact it's gonna have. So we don't have to think about the school, but by doing it in the town, it's going to inherently impact everybody who lives here.
I guess it's just like, is there a benefit to having a town committee that talks about things that the town can't take an action itself to
Well, I
do?
think they're gonna have to look at it through the town lens. I mean,
But
that's
if
what-
if the proposal is that Maple Run needs to do better, we can't do anything, is
Well,
my.
I don't think they would talk about Maple Run if it's a town.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it, like, whatever the end, you know, recommendations are, need to be related to something that the select board or the administration can actually accomplish. Like, you know, we all are,
I
you know.
don't, I mean, I can't see a committee meeting on behalf of the town and saying, you need to fix this at Maple Run. It's two different
No, but it,
organizations.
you know, it's gotta, when we develop the guiding document for the committee to follow, it's gotta be something that is, you know, like the police advisory committee, it's, you know, you're in this specific lane, that way when they do meet, the time's spent as effectively as possible related to the town. Because we're all here to try to make, you know, the town as an organization as effective as possible in our work, and, you know, like Carrie said, if you get a group of like-minded people, whether it's related to, you know, this work or, you know, any other type of work, you can get off track pretty quickly, and that would, you know, if it's limited time especially, it's,
Why don't we let Carrie find some samples, like the one in Middlebury, and we can look at it, and then you guys can also see what your capacity is. I mean, I think more meetings would be better, but there's clearly, we don't have the staff bandwidth for monthly, but
I will say that my proposal for two different committees that meet quarterly was after consulting with staff, and I think that we might be able to go to every other month each committee, but I think, you know, based on my discussions with them, I think it's, in order to be an effective staff member for a committee, it's not just the minute taking, because usually, you know, the staff person isn't always the minute taker, especially in a highly functioning committee. You might need two people. You might need a member of the committee to take the minutes, you know, to allow the staff member to take notes and provide feedback on whatever the committee's working on. But it's preparing for the meeting specifically, agendas, sending them out, making sure they're posted properly. It's preparing for the body of work that you're talking about at the meeting, you know, providing the information that was requested of you or anything that you might think is helpful. And then after the meeting, it's, you know, making sure the minutes are succinct and representative of what actually happened while it's still fresh in your mind, and then beginning to gather and distribute information that the committee's requested, and maybe researching whether or not certain things can be done. It can be pretty laborious. So it'd be, again, if we had, you know, 96 FTEs, it'd be a very different discussion for us, I think. You know, if we had a bigger bandwidth as a staff, I think we could provide more time and be effective. But, so that's where I'm at with it. But, so do we want to come back again on was it the 15th or the 18th? The 15th, our second regular meeting in November, after Corey's had a chance to be back, and the two of you can talk about it.
And what is it you'd like back on the 15th? I mean, I'm not gonna, honestly, during budget time and while building a building, I don't have that much free time right now with the other stuff that's normally on my plate, so I just wanna be real specific with, like last week was a washout for a lot of stuff that I had planned to do. So what is it you'd like by the 15th of November? Just maybe some research that I can get from VLCT or Middlebury? You want us to have a game plan? Cause I don't.
I'm thinking maybe you tell us how often you think you can meet,
Oh yeah,
and then any research you can gather without, you know, as much as you can in the amount of time you have.
Starting your thinking in January then. Because, I mean, right now, like you just alluded to, we have a meeting every week for the next 4 weeks. Every one of those meetings takes a good deal of prep time to make sure it's effective.
Right.
And we're building a building. Sorry, I keep pounding on that, but last week, a meeting that was supposed to last an hour turned into 2, so. that just happens, and that's very time sensitive stuff, so. I should be able to figure that out, I just don't wanna make promises anymore,
Fair enough.
and stuff I don't already have on the queue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I think, on the 8th and the 15th, we'll be able to take the information that you're able to provide, and then we'll hear what Brian is thinking.
Oh, true.
Brian's
Okay.
not here. I know Brian had thought that, it might not be possible. I know I talked to him, and I don't want to paraphrase or put words in his mouth, but he thought it would be nice if we added, instead of a whole separate committee, we tried to emphasize the goals of whatever that committee would be within the committees that already exist. Like Parks Committee, review events and parks policy through this lens, and Planning Commission, when you focus on documents, think about certain things, but I think his position was, we can't always solve every problem by creating another committee, which, I can understand. But again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, so we'll hear from him on the subject on the 15th.
Okay.
Okay. So now, anybody else have any other comment related to that discussion before we move on? Okay, so the Department of Public Works Equipment Replacement Fund, I think in the spring we checked out a 10-year schedule that was around, I think $325,000 or $350,000 a year to fund. I'm wondering if shortages or shipping issues have caused that number to maybe have to go up. It's been inflated. You see Alan shaking his head.
Yeah, I mean, everything's going up. I mean, we discussed that when we started with the budget, unfortunately. There's inflation on just about everything. Corey's gonna have some information on that we can cite, but inflation has hit almost every aspect of our budget. We can absorb some of it, but this is like a 5.7, 5.9, almost 6% is, everything seems to be going up. And honestly, even buying a plow truck, the lead time is so long. It's
It was
ridiculous.
already long. It's got to be two
Yeah, it
3
was
years
long,
by
and
now.
now it's unpredictable. It's just kind of frightening.
So do we want to get a fresh number on?
I can give you a fresh number right now, because I was gonna bring it up in the budget meetings. As we postponed going out to the voters for a tandem last year, to get a tandem that's already ordered on the line and set up is anywhere between $65,000 and $75,000 more than what we paid for one 3 years ago. So, you're looking at close to $270,000 to set up a plow truck right now, tandem.
And that was, what,
And if we don't, and that's if we were to give in the next 2 weeks a yes to that truck. If we go to the voters in March and they say yes, 2022 trucks have already been sold for what's gonna get made. So you won't maybe get a truck in 2023 set up, so it's 2024 before you see a new plow truck.
Do you have a macro number for that 10-year schedule? We were at 350. Are we up to,
Well, if you'd like a fresh number, we can work on it.
Yeah.
I don't have one tonight, though.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
that
we
might
can
be-
simply add 6% to that number, but I
you
think
might
that's
need
a
more,
little
but
basic, so.
By the sounds of it, you might need a lot more than that.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be enough,
Yeah.
clearly.
So
Right.
if Alan, if it's okay with Gary, if you want to start pulling quotes on really every item on that list and figure out what we need to do to make it all balance over 10 years, and we were already at having to raise taxes 3 cents to fund that equipment, so we could be looking at as much as 5 or 6 cents now, which is a ridiculous amount of our budget. It's over
Well, the whole
10%.
point of doing that, though, was so that we could avoid paying loan fees in the
Oh,
future.
definitely. I mean, it's
Just like the good news with the bad news.
It's the best way of paying for equipment. It allows us to pay cash for everything
Right.
we need to pay cash for forever.
Yep.
But, I don't know. We might have to cut back on the original plan that we had in place that resulted with 325 to keep it somewhere in the realm of reality, and then once we have that figured, we'll have to talk about how we want to move forward, because as you've seen, we're only putting $32,000 this fiscal year into the DPW equipment reserve, from the general fund, so we're funding now less than, God, I mean, that was 10% of what we really needed to fund, you know, at our last number. It might be as little as like 6 or 7% now. So that's, you know, 94% commitment to that fund that we're not meeting, and that we need to begin to meet next fiscal year. And if we do it, I think we're gonna have to put it in front of voters as an article. I think we'll have to explain it, and I think it should be kept separate from the general fund on tax bills, but that's a totally different discussion. I think, you know, a lot of towns are successful in being transparent directly on the tax bill, because for a lot of property taxpayers, that's the only time they interact with their municipalities, when they pay the bill. So we'll have to get a fresh number on that, hopefully no later than mid-November, if you can work on that, Alan, if it's okay with Carrie, and then we'll have to talk about how we want to move forward with it. You know, we just raised, you know, it's a utility fee, but, you know, you could call it a tax. It's money from, you know, residents. We just raised, you know, $400,000 or so worth of stormwater revenue.
A little more than that, but yeah.
Yeah, on actual, you know, on people that aren't the state of Vermont or, you know, the railroad.
Right.
So now we're gonna go forward and potentially have to raise a very similar amount the second year. And it just puts into perspective, you know, these other projects we have on the list that we want to accomplish, you know, as much as it might pain us, might have to be put on the back burner while we figure this out, because the community can only afford to pay so much. Especially when, you know, we're being hit in our own budget with inflation, so imagine how every, you know, family with a median or low income in that community or a fixed income is being impacted by it. So you know, we'll have to keep that in mind, that when we review the general fund, that we've got, you know, what was a 3-cent tax hit coming, that could probably be as much as 4 or 5 now after this review for inflation. So no point in speculating on it anymore, but it's you know, we started with a amount to be raised by taxes at like 3.2 million 4 years ago, and it's, if you factor the stormwater utility, it's, you know, we've raised the amount we collect from, you know, private people and business owners by, you know, 20-30% in not all that long of an amount of time. And we knew that would be the case, you know. It was you know, we knew that would have to be a case. The general fund and the tax rate were artificially low in certain spots for a while, and as we provide more services and take on new roads and have more residents, you know, a community of, you know, 7,000 usually has a slightly higher tax rate than a community of 5,000. So as the town continues to grow, it'll be reflected in, you know, the cost to provide services. You know, we won't be able to get by on 20 FTEs forever as the town grows to, you know, 8,000 or 9,000 by 2030. It might take another person to solve a lot of the things that we need to solve, but while we're trying to take care of the expenses we already have in front of us, you know, being the stormwater commitment that the state made for us that we didn't fund for a period of like 5 years, and then replacing equipment that we already have on our roster that'll need to be replaced over time, you know, it kind of makes it even harder to raise any more revenue to fund other solutions to other issues or, you know, projects. So good thing we've got that federal money, and we're able to do some things with money that didn't have to. I mean, it came out of our really wet mint debt, but anyway. So it didn't really come out of anybody's pocket, not yet anyway. So big thing, been talking about it off and on this whole calendar year, the equipment reserve, and it's going to be our big lift this year. I think the stormwater utility was a big lift. You know, I think this one will be a, you know, probably a little bit easier sell, because, you know, who doesn't want to pay cash for a vehicle when given the opportunity? And it will save the taxpayer money in the long run by not having to pay loan origination or interest. But it's still it's a cost above and beyond what we charge right now. So it'll be effectively a tax increase next year. But, you gotta keep the roads clean. And we all know what salt does to vehicles in Vermont, so they need to be replaced, no matter how many times you wash them or wax them.
But we are washing them now.
Oh,
Clean-
definitely.
In beautifully clean water, and we're grateful for that. So they will last a little longer, but we still do need to replace some.
Anybody have anything else they wanna add to the equipment replacement fund discussion?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Any other business? Okay, so we've gotta go into, executive session to discuss a couple different personnel matters.
I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues where premature general public knowledge of the subject matter would place the town or persons involved at a substantial disadvantage. Further move to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues under the provisions of Title
Recording
1,
stopped.
Section 313A1 of Vermont statutes, and to invite the manager.
Sorry, thought it took longer. I thought it asked me another question.
No one needs
Like,
to listen to me say
do you
that.
want to stop that? And I'm like, yes, I do. But anyway, did not ask again.
Second.
All in favor?
It's very important, that motion.
You poked the